Howdy, everybody. Welcome to 2 Minutes and Beyond, the podcast where we review the Toy Story movies 2 minutes at a time. I'm Macy, and this is Bianca.
Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I'm doing good.
Good. Today, in this episode, we're talking about minutes 7 and 8 of Toy Story.
I'm very excited.
Me too. We get to talk about Bo today.
I know. Finally seeing Bo. I'm excited.
Yes. Speaking of that, when we start this clip, we catch Rex in the middle of his line he started in last week's clip. He says, "Here, but I just don't feel it. I think I'm just coming off as annoying." Which is such a great line.
I feel so bad for this poor dinosaur. He's so clunky and awkward, and he looks like a puppy. I love that he looks like a puppy.
He kind of does. Suddenly, Bo's shepherdess crook appears and she pulls Woody towards herself. He coughs and says, "Ow." Which, for one, I immediately thought that's more evidence that toys feel pain.
I know. It's like, I don't understand the physics of Toy Story. I don't understand if certain things hurt them or certain things don't hurt them. Because there's some instances where you see toys being pretty much mutilated and they're like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'll just walk it off. And then stuff like that, and they're like, ow, this actually really hurt.
Yeah, like Woody says "ow" from Bo's crook, but in Toy Story 4, when his voice box is literally being pulled and like ripped out of his back,
Exactly.
he
No
barely
anesthesia
reacts.
was used. You know, this isn't just outpatient surgery. They're just literally ripping it out of his body. And that's pretty traumatizing.
I was thinking of like the scene where he's like suspended in the air and like Bo's pulling on one side with the rope, and then the dummies are pulling from the other side on his string, and it like starts to come out.
Yeah, that's true. The same thing when his arm falls off. I'm like, yeah, he's scared about it. He's surprised that his arm is falling off in Toy Story 2, but he doesn't say anything like, if my arm were to fall off, I'd be screaming in pain.
It really doesn't make sense. I'm also wondering how Woody and Rex didn't see Bo coming up behind him.
I know, she's like a ninja. She just sneaks. And I'm like, Rex needs to learn from Bo certain, sneaking qualities, because I'm pretty sure Woody heard him and that's why he wasn't scared when he came up to roar. And it's like, you just imagine this big clunky dinosaur, you would hear his footsteps.
I know. So let's talk about Bo Peep for a little bit, shall we?
Yes, I love Bo.
She's great. Woody's girlfriend was originally supposed to be a Barbie doll, but Mattel didn't want that. So they designed Bo Peep, according to Pixar Wiki, after she's a reference to the fairy tale The Shepherdess and the Chimney Sweep by Hans Christian Andersen. And that story is also about toys coming to life in a child's room.
That's interesting. I never knew that the toys came. Like, I've heard of the story, and I know kind of the basis of that story, but I never really realized that the toys come to life. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very out of the loop on a lot of things.
Well, a lot of things I'm learning just doing research for this. I'm learning a lot of new stuff too.
I know, that's so crazy. I really like that they went this path with the character choice instead of a Barbie for Woody, because I feel like it makes more sense to have a shepherdess with a cowboy as opposed to like a fashion model doll with a cowboy. It just fits better.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad that they allowed Barbies in the rest of the Toy Story movies, but I'm glad that Woody didn't end up with a Barbie girlfriend.
I know. I mean, I do. I've loved Barbie since I was little. I
Yeah,
have
same.
had countless amounts of Barbies, and I've loved her to death. But to see her as just like a separate character and not like a love interest in the movie, I am glad they made that decision.
Hmm. Besides, she's already got Ken,
I
so.
know she's got Ken. Who else could you ask for?
In our sacred text, Toy Story, The Art and Making
Sacred
of the
text.
Animated Feature, on pages 88, 86, and 87, it talks about Bo. There's a quote from Galen Sussman, the lighting lead on this movie. She says, "Our Bo Peep isn't as dainty as you'd expect her to be from her looks. She's more of a city chick than a farm girl." Also, on those pages, it talks about how it's comparing Bo and Ham. It says they're at opposite like extremes of how shaders can depict light hitting a surface. And it says initially Bo's snow white skin was going to carry a matte shader finish similar to Ham's, but that made her look too much like the other plastic doll toys and left her lost in crowd scenes. Instead, her skin was pushed up to maximum shininess, then given a series of intricate reflections with a technical trick called trace cube, which, to simplify it, is basically like it's a flattened out sort of cardboard box like texture with the whole environment mapped onto it. It says, in Bo's case, a little trace cube technology went a long way. If we tried to reflect the whole room in her, it got too complicated, says Galen Sussman, who worked on Bo's shader as well as one for her sheep. Every time she turned her head, she had all this distracting stuff moving over her face. It made her look metallic, so we simplified it. If you examine Bo closely during her scenes with Woody, you'll see that the only objects reflected in her dazzling surface are Andy's bedroom windows. Woody doesn't show up at all. Of course, that selective, self possessed exterior truly befits the sort of woman that Bo is. She's her own shepherdess, not some beautiful reflection of a shy cowboy's interest in her.
That's really interesting, like how they do it, and then they tell you how they do it in the sacred text. They, give you different little tidbits like this is what we did to figure this out, and this is how we fixed it when we realized it's too much. And, I really like those little tidbits, especially coming from an artist's point of view, because that just shows like how much dedication they put into each and every character.
Hmm. And I also thought it was interesting the way they talk about her. Like they say she's more of a city chick than a farm girl. Like um, I really like the line. I really like what it said about how she's her own shepherdess, not some beautiful reflection of a shy cowboy's interest in her. Because I feel like, kind of because of the way um, that she got used in the first two movies, she's kind of seen as, at least before Toy Story 4, she's kind of seen as, oh, she's only there to be Woody's girlfriend, which
Right,
is
yeah.
kind of true, but she's also um but her personality is like she's a strong woman.
Yeah, she's independent. She's not just like following the pack and being like, "Oh, well, whatever happens happens," like she's sassy. Even in the first couple of movies, she's not, just a dainty little ceramic model over there. She actually has, roles to play. As even though they didn't give her that many roles, I feel like she was a pretty good character.
Well, even in this scene that we're talking about, I mean, she knows what she wants.
This is true.
She literally grabs him with her hook.
She is a pretty independent woman.
Mhm.
I do like that about her.
She is voiced by Annie Potts, who was an actress known for her roles in Ghostbusters 1 and 2 and the reboot of Ghostbusters, and she's in the show Young Sheldon, and she's been in a bunch of other things as well. And she also appeared in a video that I watched in my driver's ed class in 2011 that was clearly filmed in like the 90s because it had a bunch of 90s celebrities in it. And the only two I remember were Annie Potts and Tim Allen. They were both in this driver's ed video that I had to watch. I don't remember what it was about, but I just remember being like, "Oh, it's that lady who plays Bo."
That's fantastic. I actually really like her character in Ghostbusters. It's been forever since I've seen Ghostbusters, so I don't remember her name. I'm sorry, but I think it's funny that she plays a sassy character also in Ghostbusters. Annie Potts is just a sassy lady. I love her.
I've never seen Ghostbusters,
Oh, I
and
think you'd enjoy it. It's fun.
I should watch it sometime.
Eventually,
Yeah.
when we're done with this.
So this whole scene where Bo and Woody are flirting, like as a kid, it always made me really uncomfortable, but not necessarily because they were flirting, but just because of the weird faces Woody was making through the whole scene.
That's always made me feel very uncomfortable too. It's like secondhand embarrassment. You feel his
Mhm.
embarrassment and you're just like, stop. You're making a huge dork out of yourself. And I don't know what Bo sees in you. Just stop it.
So I debated if I wanted to mention this, and if we want to cut it out, we can. But I think a couple years ago, I saw someone on social media point out the um, the shape of the racetrack behind them during the whole scene
Hmm.
and what the shape looks like.
Dare I even ask?
I mean, if you just look at the clip, you can see it. That's behind them as they're talking.
Oh gosh, I'm going to have to look this up now. So you said it was when Bo and Woody are talking?
Mhm.
Oh my
It's like
gosh.
at 7 seconds. That's where you can see it best.
Oh my god. See, but it doesn't even. I mean, it kind of does, but it also kind of doesn't.
I know, which is why I mean I don't know whether I want to say it's intentional or not, but it kind of seems intentional.
It seems a little intentional.
I'm sorry that you have to see
Now I'm
that.
never
No.
not going to see that also.
Oh boy. I've always really liked the that line, I'm just a couple of blocks away.
Yeah, like building
That's
blocks.
that's a good pun.
That is a good pun.
So I was also wondering, like, how long have they been together at this point? Because according to Toy Story 4, like what he says in Toy Story 4, uh, Molly got Bo because she was afraid of the dark, and Molly's still like a baby at this point. So they must not have been together for very long at this point in
Probably not. And that's
the
what I'm
movie.
thinking. I think that they, if anything, have had her for like a couple of months at the most. But even then, Molly doesn't look older than a year. Like she looks like she's either about to turn a year or just, already at a year old. She doesn't seem older or,
Mhm.
or any younger than that. She's already standing. She's putting stuff in her mouth. Usually that happens when you're at a year or slightly older. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. So they just got Bo a couple of months ago. And of course, being the friendly cowboy he is, just welcomed her. And then he's just like, I'm attaching myself to you.
I feel like knowing Bo, she might have been the one to make the first move.
More than likely, she was. She's probably been yanking at his neck with her crook since the day that she came out of the box.
Which, speaking of which, I'm always slightly disappointed because no, I have like 3 different Bo dolls. None of their crooks actually fit
On
around
his
my
neck.
Woody doll's necks.
That's sad.
Which seems like a weird thing to test, but I've tried it.
You're like, don't ask me
Out
why.
of curiosity.
That is funny. I know, because her little staff, the crook, is pretty huge for a toy. She's not even a toy. She's just a lamp accent.
I mean, Andy uses her as a toy.
He does. I'm pretty sure he would use a styrofoam cup as a toy.
I was also wondering, like, why does she walk like the opposite direction from the meeting and not go to the meeting?
This is true. She doesn't go to the meeting. Rude. She doesn't want to hear the love of her life give a meeting.
She doesn't want to be a supportive girlfriend.
She just wants to go throw her sheep somewhere and spend the night with him. Oh my god.
Because I think I remember seeing her in the commercials for the Toy Story animated storybook and in the walkthroughs I've watched of it. She's there in the staff meeting scene, but they don't have the scene with them flirting.
That's interesting. I wonder if it was like a last minute change for the animated storybook, because they thought, okay, this is a little awkward to keep putting in media, but because I too also felt that was a really awkward scene. And even to this day, I'm like, I'm fast forwarding these 5 seconds.
I mean, it's kind of cute, but it's also kind of hard to watch, and it's just mostly because of Woody's face.
Yes, I think they could have spent a little more time on it to where it wasn't so weird. But I think also they were just trying to get the movie out. So I don't
And
know.
to be fair, Woody makes a lot of weird faces in this movie.
He
It's not
does.
just this scene.
And it's one of my favorite things when he goes ballistic with Buzz and he's just like going off on him and he's like angry, like yelling, all his facial expressions. It makes me laugh.
At 27 seconds, it cuts to Slinky gathering everyone up for the staff meeting and says, come on, smaller toys up front. And then the troikas all pop out of each other's mouths and line up with the smallest ones in the front.
I love those little dudes. They're so cute. I was hoping that they would make a toy of it, like as obscure as that
Oh, they
is.
should have done that.
They could have done that. I would have loved that to have as a collectible item because I love those little dudes.
I've seen like some fans make custom ones.
Oh, that's cute. Maybe I'll just go buy a custom one somewhere because I really do like those little dudes.
I looked up a little bit about them. They're inspired by Russian nesting dolls, of course. There's a bulldog, a cat, a duck, a goldfish, and a ladybug. And according to Pixar Wiki, they're based on Little Tyke's nested farm animals.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So at 30 seconds, Woody is still staring after Bo, making a really awkward face. Slinky catches his attention and says, hey, Woody, come on. And Woody runs to his place at the podium. There's a shot of some of the other toys walking up to the meeting. And during this shot, you can hear, if you listen closely, you can hear the Cian saying, the sheep goes, ba, ba.
Oh my gosh, I've never noticed that. And because this time when I was watching the clip, it was low, I didn't get to hear it, but I'm going to have to rewatch it with my volume louder so that I can hear it.
There's so many audio things that I'm noticing for the first time just because I don't usually watch the movie with headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm watching it with headphones on, I can hear all this stuff that I've never noticed before.
I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to plug in my my headphones to my phone and watch the clips.
So Woody gets up to the podium, which is just a tub of Tinker Toys with some blocks behind it for him to stand on. There's a hymn sound, speaking of sounds that I never noticed until listening to it with headphones. And Woody turns to see Mr. Mike offering his microphone. Woody thanks him and takes it. There's a bunch of feedback, and Mr. Mike sheepishly takes a step back. According to Pixar Wiki, Mr. Mike is a real toy from 1981. He's the Play School Rockin' Robot. The toy is identical to Mr. Mike seen in the film in both functionality and appearance.
I want
There's
to say my cousin had one because I remember it and I saw it when I first saw it in the movie. I was like, that's just like my cousin's.
yeah, I didn't have one of those, but I had a different Play School like tape recorder microphone thing. It was like sort of a round design, but it
Mm-hmm.
had like the same color scheme, and it was also made by Play School, I'm pretty sure. There's various real life toys of Mr. Mike that have been made based on the movie, um, including two made by Play School in 1996. Mr. Mike recites various lines from Toy Story, and the AM/FM tuner has been replaced by a voice changer.
That's really interesting.
Hmm. I thought it was interesting that he says a him, but then he doesn't talk anywhere else in the movie. That's the only thing he says.
That's true. He doesn't say anything else.
It's like he's just a vessel for other toys to speak through.
He doesn't have a voice of his own. That's so
Nope.
sad.
At 38 seconds, you can see Mr. Mike raises his right eyebrow and it goes like so far up that it like disappears. It's just gone. It's not there anymore.
I wonder if that was just like a little error that happened and it
Probably.
just kept going up.
Oh, I was wondering, would feedback that bad like happen just from being that close? Because I feel like at least with the tape recorder I had, from what I remember, you basically had to like put the microphone right up next to the speaker to get feedback that was as bad as that is.
Right. I really don't think so because I've had stuff like that too, and like where you put the microphone next to the actual unit and it doesn't even make it that loud. I'm like, what kind of Mr. Mike magic is going on here?
It's
Maybe that was his retaliation because he doesn't have a voice. Maybe that was him trying to call for help.
that was his
And
scream.
Woody just shuns him away. That's why he looks so sad when he walks away.
um At 41 seconds, another weird audio thing that I never noticed before was there's a weird voice in the background. When the feedback goes off, there's a weird voice in the background saying, "Oh, I hate that. Stop it. Stop." It doesn't sound like any of the toys that I can think of.
Hmm. It's probably like when they do just like filler voices just to make it sound like a crowd talking, and it's probably one of the artists or like the producer or somebody just when they just do like random little cameos. That's probably what happened.
I just want to know which toy it belongs to because it's like this weird, "Oh, stop it,"
I have heard
from what
that
I
though. I've heard
remember.
that one. I don't know. Maybe it's like
Could it be one of the little tykes?
probably. Or maybe it's the hockey puck and that's the only time he talks and we don't
Oh,
know.
could be. At 45 seconds, Woody blows on the mic to test it and checks that everyone can hear him. Then he starts with the first item on his list, moving buddies. Everyone kind of freaks out, and Ham says, "Moving buddies? You can't be serious." And Rex says he didn't know they were supposed to have one already. Potato Head cheekily holds one of his arms and asks, "Do we have to hold hands?"
I
And
love
which
how much of a jerk Mr. Potato Head is.
Mr. Potato Head is constantly trying to undermine Woody's authority.
I feel like he, out of all the toys, just does not give any type of crap. He's just like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm the most chaotic toy here. I'm just going to wreak havoc.
I feel like Woody kind of needs that, though. He needs to be taken down. He needs to be taken down a peg just a
He
little bit.
does. You know what? Mr. Potato Head keeps Woody's pride in check, and I really feel like that's needed because if not, I feel like Andy's room would be a whole lot more strict and it would be kind of like a concentration camp.
Oh, I noticed in this scene the little Tykes firemen are they're just kind of sitting there chilling in their little truck, and
They're
one
so
of them
cute.
is they're adorable,
I
and
just
one of
need
them
one short. I need Pixar to do one short of just those little dudes just doing whatever in Andy's room.
but one of them is like sitting in the
Oh,
little
and the
cup
little basket up on the
at the
top.
top of the ladder, just chilling.
They're so cute.
At 1:06, Woody says, "Oh yeah, you guys think this is a big joke. We've only got 1 week left before the move. I don't want any toys left behind. A moving bunny. If you don't have one, get one."
I
Which is so
honestly
aggressive.
feel like Woody was very confident in that everything was going to go according to plan, but nothing ever goes according to plan, even in the workplace. I feel like this is a 1995 toy version of The Office.
We kinda talked about that, didn't we?
Yes.
Where
And this whole scene in particular, I feel like it's part of like, I feel like Mr. Potato Head would be the one, like Stanley, just to pull out a pizza and just start eating.
pull out his pretzel.
Yes. I
Pretzel
mean,
day.
working at a doctor's office, I have seen so many plans, so many implementations just not work out because the execution of giving the information was not properly done and nobody cares. Even I don't care. I'm like, whatever. You know what you're talking about, moving buddy.
I mean, I feel like it seems like maybe all the toys are, like, a little bit embarrassed at the idea of having to have, like, a moving buddy, which is part of why they're not so crazy about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, it's a checks and balance kind of thing, and Woody seems like a very organized toy. But at the same time, if they're all independent and if you're relying on them individually, then maybe it's a little more accountable than opposed to just two people just slacking off and being like, well, whatever, bye. I don't know.
I I feel like if you're in Woody's position and you wanna make sure everyone gets to the new house in one piece, then a moving buddy's probably not a bad idea.
True. I think also he just wanted to have Bo as his moving buddy. So he put up the plan like, oh yeah, we're going to be in a box together moving. And then Buzz comes along. Jeez.
Oh, while Woody's talking, the roly-poly clown gets in the way of Potato Head, and Potato Head, like, smacks him back.
That's one of my favorite things. Even though I feel so bad for the little clown, I feel like he was just listening, being the attentive toy that he is, and then he just gets slapped. He gets sucker punched by Mr. Potato Head.
Mr. Potato Head, I feel like, hits him several times in this scene. It's like, "Geez."
He's a very rude potato.
I know. It's like, you need to learn some manners.
He needs a wife is what he needs.
Well, that's not till the next movie.
I
At 1:16, you can hear a dog barking in the background, and I assume it must be Scud or some other neighborhood dog.
Probably. I really don't notice a lot of stuff. When I watch a movie, I could just go into like this daydream zone and I'm just like with my eyes glazed over watching the movie.
Right after that at 1:17, there's There's a good shot of, like, all of the books on Andy's shelf and all the toys and stuff.
Mhm.
There's the board games Operation Mousetrap and Ants in the Pants. There's a silver and red top, and then there's a bunch of books. Do we wanna go through all of the books that are on that shelf?
Yeah, let's go through all the books. But first, I must say that I've had all of those games. Those were a lot of fun. I want to say that Mousetrap was my most favorite game, but just to set up. I never actually played the game. I just set up the whole Mousetrap.
I don't think I ever played Mousetrap or Operation. I think the box art on the Operation games kind of scared me as a child. I do remember I don't know if it was Ants in the Pants, but it was one of those games from that same company as Ants in the Pants, where they come in, like, those weird
The
rectangular
very white
boxes.
boxes, yes.
Yeah, and all in the same font.
I used to have, I don't know if we had, I want to say we do because I remember the ants. I remember the big plastic ants. But my favorite one from that line of toys was Don't Break the Ice.
That's what I was gonna say. That's the one I know I for sure played. That was a fun game.
That one was a fun game. And that too, I used to love to set up all the ice cubes. That was me. I was the kid that loved setting stuff up.
The books on the shelf are Grimm's Fairy Tales, Knick Knack, Floppy. I think it says Floppy and Bunny, Tin Toy by Lassiter, Red's Dream by Reeves, which is a reference to Bill Reeves, who I could be wrong, but off the top of my head, if I remember right, I think he was the supervising technical director of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked on Red's Dream. And then there's Ant and Bee Go on a Vacation Scooter Run by, it was kind of hard to read the author name on there, but I think it's Aupper, Aupper.
Hmm.
And there's great places for children to visit. The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. Smurl, Smurl, Twist and Twirl by, I think it says L Money. Pale Cowboy from Texas, Help the Planet, and Feet First. Knick Knack, Tin Toy, Red's Dream, and The Adventures of Andre and Wally B are, of course, are all references to Pixar shorts, like all those old Pixar shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Ant and Bee Go on a Vacation. It might be a reference to a book series called Ant and Bee, but there's a bunch of Ant and Bee books, but there's no there's no books called Ant and Bee Go on a Vacation.
Maybe it was just like paying homage to it. Like they
Probably
probably
so.
really liked the series, or maybe somebody's child really liked the series, so they just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah. Um, Scooter Run is probably a reference to the fact that they would like race scooters around the Pixar office.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking because I had just watched that Pixar Studio Story behind the scenes thing from one of the DVDs where um they told the story of like beating each other's records, like racing with scooters all around the office.
I think
Uh
I've seen that, and I thought to myself, like, yeah, that's really cool and everything. But after that bird scooter company that came out, I don't
oh,
know if you have it in your city, but
we have Lime.
okay. Well, we have one called Bird, and it's brought in a lot of patients to where I work. We've had a lot of people come in after writing those.
I used to like to use them on campus. They were fun to ride around to my different classes in different buildings.
That sounds like fun though, having a little scooter to get to class, especially if you're on a big campus and it's
Mhm.
easier to just go that way as opposed to, just walking from building to building.
Yeah, you gotta be careful though, because doing it too much can get kind of expensive.
That's the only downside.
Yeah. Smurl, Smurl, Twist and Twirl is a reference to Elliot Smurl. He was on the modeling team, shader team, and modeling and animation system development for this movie. Um, Feet First doesn't seem to be a real book, although I did find a couple of books with that title. One is a memoir from 2003. That's a story about a first generation son of immigrant parents who came to America after the turn of the century in the early 1900s. And then the other is a book from 1988 about foot reflexology. And it's about how whatever this is, foot reflexology can apparently fix all kinds of physical problems from headaches and insomnia to high blood pressure and weight loss. And it can reduce stress, revitalize energy, strengthen the immune system, stimulate creativity, and enhance relationships.
Oh, I'm down for a foot massage.
It seems like one of those things that just claims to fix everything and
Right? I know. I
probably
know we
does
have
not
pressure
actually work.
points.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know how many pressure points or if they'd fix every single problem. Like I've heard of reflexology. They even do it on the hands and like on the ears, but I don't know if you have that many pressure points. I'd have to research it and I'd have to like actually look it up to see how credible it actually is, like how many things it actually cures.
I mean, it sounds too good to be true to me.
Yeah, it kind of does. But like I said, I'm down for a foot massage. So
At 1:20, Woody moves on to his next point. He says, Tuesday night's plastic corrosion awareness meeting was, I think, a big success, and we want to thank Mr. Spell for putting that on for us. There's a little bit of light applause, probably because how few of them actually have hands that can clap. And then Mr. Spell says, "You're welcome," with the words scrolling across his screen.
in his little monotone voice.
Which I love the plastic corrosion awareness meeting joke. One, because it's really funny, but also because it's just it's this interesting little look into the kind of things like a toy would be concerned about.
Right? I know. Like it's as if we're going to like a nutrition class or a reflexology class.
I mean, of course, a toy would have to be worried about plastic corrosion.
I know,
It makes sense.
especially like I don't know if you've ever seen it online where if you don't properly dry out like rubber ducks, they get mold
Oh
on the
yeah,
inside of them. So I would see how that's a concern for the toys. I wonder if those toys feel the effects of the mold too. Like, are they
I hope
immune to
not.
it? Do they start getting sick too?
Do they feel pain?
Exactly. Do they feel pain?
I feel like we're just gonna keep coming back to that topic.
I'm very intrigued in this topic. I need to know, do you feel pain? I feel like they would feel pain, but then again, there's like I said, there's certain instances where they're pretty mutilated and they're like, "Hey, I'm fine."
um, so I wanted to give a little bit of history about Mr. Spell. He was based on a toy called Speak and Spell that was created in the late 70s by Texas Instruments, the company that makes all those calculators and stuff. It was the first commercially available product to use something called digital signal processing, which, according to this website, thoughtco.com, digital signal processing is the manipulation of analog information into digital, which for the speak and spell would mean taking analog sounds and based on my probably not great understanding of it, taking analog sounds and using it to create digital sounds. I think that's a good way to explain it.
So kind of like a computer speaking,
Yeah.
which is
Um
why he has such a monotone robotic voice.
yeah, there's actually a really good video that I wasn't even looking for it. Like weeks ago it got randomly recommended to me on YouTube by this channel called the 8-bit guy, and it was about speech synthesizers. and actually had a speak and spell like in the thumbnail because they talked a lot about the speak and spell as well as the see and say, and
Mhm.
they talked about pull string toys.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the guy explains how a lot of that kind of stuff works a lot better than he's able to explain it a lot better than I can. But I'll put that video in the show notes if I remember to.
That's really interesting. I like learning stuff like that, like how certain things work, especially when it's something that you grew up with because
Mhm.
you've grown up with it like, oh, it just works, it's nothing
Yeah.
to it. But then you get older and you're like, well, how does this work? So watching videos like that's always really interesting.
Yeah. It was really interesting because it talks about, I mean, like I said, it talks about like the see and say as well, which apparently started off having a pull string like Woody, and then it talks about like briefly about pull string toys and how those work, and it's and it and it uh and it talks about computer speech synthesizers, and it's really neat.
That is really
Um
neat.
But this Mr. Spell is voiced by Jeff Pigeon, who has been an animator, writer, and a storyboard artist for Pixar, and he also voiced the robot and the aliens in this movie.
That's interesting. I didn't know that he did the robot too. I
Yeah,
knew
I
he did
didn't.
the aliens, but
Yeah,
I didn't know he did the robot.
yeah, I didn't know either. At 1:32, Woody lifts up the plastic cover of his doodle pad, and he tries to hurry through his next point. It says, "One minor note here: Andy's birthday party has been moved to today. Next we have," but then everyone cuts him off and just completely freaks out.
What makes me
There's
mad at this clip is that he lifts up the paper,
Oh
but
yeah.
that erases your notes. So I'm
I
like,
didn't think
why did
about
you
that
lift it up?
because it looks like he's lifting it up to like see it better, but that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense. Or like he's looking at a minor note underneath another document, but I'm like, that doesn't work in this situation because that little film is what
Yeah.
erases what you wrote.
That would make sense if it was, like, paper and he was looking at what was underneath at the paper underneath, but,
You
yeah, that
can't
doesn't
fool
make
me,
sense. I never thought
Pixar. I
about
know
that.
how these toys work.
There's a voice, like, when everyone freaks out, I'm pretty sure it's Potato Head saying, "Wait a minute here, hold the phone, back it up, will ya?" But, like, Potato Head's lips aren't moving. Like, he's making this scared face with his teeth, like, showing, like, I mean, people listening can't see what I'm doing, but his teeth, he's got his teeth showing, and he's not talking, but that's his voice saying that. I'm pretty
maybe
sure
they
it's his
just
voice. I'm like 90% sure it's his voice.
maybe they forgot to animate that part. Like they forgot that they took that clip and they were using it. And when it came time when they were watching it, they're like, "Oh, we forgot to animate Potato Head's mouth moving." But then they're like,
No.
"Nah, nobody's gonna worry anyways. It's all children watching it."
They did not predict that in 2000 and that in 2021 there'd be
We would be
2 full-grown
analyzing
adults.
every single thing.
But when Woody announces it, a bunch of the toys, like, jump up, and, like, Mr. Potato Head's hat, like, flies off and then falls back down. The same thing happens to, like, the little tykes,
The
which is,
little
like
tykes.
it's such a little just a little fun, like, cartoony thing.
Yeah, that is really cute. I want to say that I think every instance that Andy has a potential of getting a new toy, this happens.
Well, that's what he says. He says, like, "Every Christmas and birthday, we go through this."
But I mean, even like if they go to the store and Andy's mom says, you know what, you got a good grade. Let's just get you a toy. And then they come home and there's a new toy and they're all freaking out. And the new toy's like, what's going on?
I love that Mr. Spell's screen says, "What?" in all caps with, like,
Yes.
a bunch of question marks and an exclamation point.
That's great. I like that extra little bit that they put in there. Like they actually utilized his little screen to
Yeah,
do
it's
a lot of
funny.
fun things like that.
Yeah. At 1:40, Rex says, "What do you mean the party's today? His birthday's not till next week." And Ham says, "What's going on down there? Is his mom lives in her marbles?" When he explains that she must have wanted to have the party before the move, he says, "I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried." Potato Head, again, just being violent to the other toys, pushes Lenny and the roly poly clown aside and says, "Of course Woody ain't worried. He's been Andy's favorite since kindergarten." And Slinky comes to Woody's defense and says, "Hey, come on, Potato Head. If Woody says it's all right, then well, darn it, it's." And then that's where the clip cuts off, and Mr. Potato Head has pulled his mouth out and is holding it behind his back, and it just ends with him holding it behind his back.
I love that they put that in the movie because that's something that the adults could laugh at
Mhm.
while the kids are watching and they're like, what's going on? Because I remember as a child, I didn't understand what that was until much later when I was watching it. I'm like, I finally get why that's in the movie and it fits Mr. Potato Head very perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely didn't get it either as a child.
That's so
Um,
funny. There's a lot of stuff like that that they put into movies, not necessarily even just Pixar, but
mhm,
other movies that are geared for children. Me watching stuff now as an adult, I'm like, "Oh gosh, why did they put that in there? That flew over my head when I was a kid." So, I mean, I guess
yeah.
it is for the parents because the parents usually get stuck watching cartoons with their kids. So, it's just a little comedy relief for them.
Yeah, I remember being a teenager watching Toy Story for the first time in years around the time Toy Story 3 came out and getting a lot of the or noticing a lot of the jokes for the first time and being like, "Wow, this movie is way more adult than I remembered."
That's what makes it great, though. I mean, it's not just for kids to where it's cheesy and annoying and, you know, extra childish. Because
Mhm.
those types of movies that don't have any type of like older kid or adult humor in it usually just come off as like a movie for a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
But this one is for the whole family. So they have to incorporate other stuff that, older kids would like and that the adults would get and like too.
Yeah. And I feel like in this movie, a lot of those jokes come from Mr. Potato Head.
I love Mr. Potato Head. He's such a snarky potato.
Oh, and I like the detail that, and Woody's been Andy's favorite since kindergarten.
I like that too. I like that, they put that in there because when I was little, I know I had favorite toys from when I was a child. When I was a baby, I used to have an Ernie stuffed toy, and
Oh.
I loved that Ernie to death. He was my favorite.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had, like, one consistent favorite toy like, like Andy does with Woody, but I definitely had, like, different favorite toys at different times.
Yeah, I
Um
can see that. Like I had a few favorite toys. Um, Even as Andy was growing up, you know that he Woody stayed his favorite. And for me, that relates a lot to me because for me, as a 30-year-old adult, I still have stuffed animals from when I was about 5 or 6, and I'm going to keep those, and I'm probably going to be buried with them too.
Yeah, I still have my golden retriever stuffed animal that I got for Christmas when I was 8, almost 18 years ago.
Oh my gosh, I have a stuffed dog. He's like a sad looking beagle for it was my great grandma's, and she named him Lyndon after Lyndon B. Johnson. And when she passed away, they were, just going through her house. They're like, "Oh, here, Bianca, you can have this." So I now
Oh,
have Lyndon.
that's sweet. That I just like that that's such a that's such a, like, great, like, little bit of information that like establishes Woody and Andy's relationship in just like an almost a throwaway line.
Yeah, it's a very nonchalant, just whatever line, but
Yeah,
it sets up the premise that, he's his favorite, and that makes it even more like, oh, he's been his favorite forever. So when Buzz comes on, that's why Woody is acting the way he's acting, because he's been
mhm,
the favorite for years.
yeah. Is there, since we're at the end of the clip, is there anything else you'd like to say about it? Because I
Uh,
have a couple things.
I mean, we do cover a lot of stuff, so I'm pretty good.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that this is one of the scenes where sometimes when I'm watching the movie, I just like to imitate Woody's gestures. Some people say the quotes from the movie along with the movie, but I'm doing Woody's. Well, I'm probably doing both the gestures and the quotes in this
Yeah.
scene.
He's a very animated, no pun intended, toy, and it's just fun to watch all of his movements. And I think that that was intended because he's a rag doll. So
Hmm.
rag dolls are more floppy and they move around, so they tried to animate and incorporate that into his character, and I think they did a really good job.
One of the things that the book, Sacred Text, actually mentions is that I wrote it down in my research, but I've kind of been waiting for a good scene to mention it, but they based a lot of Woody's movements off of what's his name, Ray Bolger, who I think was, I could be wrong, was the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz.
Okay, yeah. No, he's pretty animated too. He's a pretty good example.
Yeah. Oh, um, how does Ham get to the top of the shelf?
Gosh, I've never thought of that. Like when I saw him on the shelf, you just think, okay, like that's his house because that's where piggy
Yeah.
banks go. But then you're like, wait, how does he get down? Like, does he get on the bed? Does he bounce down and then go back up? Or do they have
Well,
like a crane system?
he was in like the clip before this, he was down on the ground talking to Potato Head like just a minute or two ago.
Exactly. What type of sorcery is this pig using?
I don't know.
I'm gonna start calling him the wizard pig.
um According to the audio commentary, they they mentioned in this during this scene that they did research on toys by going to Toys R Us and buying and like looking at all the toys with like using their company credit cards during work hours and then bringing their own toys from home.
That's great. I like that.
I mean, I wish I had the kind of job where I could use company money to go out and buy
And
toys.
buy toys and research them, quote unquote.
And also, according to the commentary, they said that the staff meeting was actually the scene that they rewrote and re-storyboarded the most.
I can see that because it needs to sound as natural as like an office type
Mhm.
business meeting, or like just any type of general meeting where you'd have a community. And it's also hard to get the speaker to sound as fluid. Me being in speech class, I'm learning all of this, so I can understand how that would be difficult to set out an outline for the speech and then to have the community react to the speaker.
Yeah. I guess that's about it. If you don't have anything else to say,
No, I'm pretty
because I
good.
okay, I guess I am too. Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to follow our Facebook and Twitter accounts and send us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.